A reading from the Lessons on the Epistle of St. Paul to the Romans by Maria Valtorta, March 29th, 1950. To the Romans, chapter 8, verses 26 and 27. Likewise, the most divine Spirit has more ways of helping your weaknesses. By giving himself to you with his immensity of light and power, he penetrates and illuminates you as far as the innermost depths of your spirit. And he fecunds it all by making grace and other virtues prosper in you, by allowing you to possess the Father and the Son and their reciprocal love, that is, he himself, which no book nor human word of wisdom can succeed in doing. Because in his immensity of wisdom, God is always luminous and simple. His teaching is a divine touch which turns on lights, apt to illuminate the mysteries. It is a caress that awakens love in you. It is a kiss that allows you to taste the flavor of God, that God the Father who nourishes you with his providential love as if it were milk, that God the Son who nourishes you with his flesh and blood, and that God the Holy Spirit who nourishes you with his sapiential honey, in order to make you more desirous of God, as bees to the flower's nectar. And where is there a more wonderful, sweeter, and purer flower than God? And what thing attracts more than a perfumed flower of varied colors, of beneficial nectars, and attracts even the most simple and unlearned ones, even children, even the elderly who no longer have any more human illusions, even the sick crucified to their cross? Because it attracts without tiring, because it gladdens, and because it testifies of the existence of God and of his providence, which succors even the grass in the fields. So simply, with his humanly divine silence, but spiritually with his indefatigable voice, resonating in the attentive silence of a soul, the Spirit instructs, teaches, advises, guides, and communicates to you with his every effusion, seconded by you, a greater knowledge of God, the generatrix of a higher degree of love towards God, of a more secure persuasion that deeds carried out of the love for God, and therefore in his love, are carried out with the help and union of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And thus they become supernaturalized, whilst the individual man transforms himself through a continual generation of the Word, through the will of the Father who wants you to be other Christs, into a child of God, into evermore a child, the more one lives in the love of the Father and of the Son, that is, in the embrace of the Spirit of God. This transformation, when it becomes total, for however much can be in a being still living in an earthly exile, for having been a being who has emptied everything that is not of pure love, and it is out of the pure love of God and for God, he who has stripped himself of all things that can be of an impediment to him, sensitive affections not directed to a supernatural, charitable end, excessive fears in regards to the imperfection of every human act compared to the perfection who is God, the anxiety of doing too much and too many things having come from one's will to do, even with good intentions, and which then produce fatigue and distraction, and is an impediment to the listening and heeding of divine inspirations and intentions, inspired or proposed by God to the spirit of man. This transformation is said, when it becomes total, as far as a spirit who is still enclosed in flesh can become, leads one to surpass all the limits and limitations related to human nature. It raises to immeasurable heights of love, as far as to immolation, or of contemplation, as far as to ecstasy, or to revelations, during which a mystical soul, for brief instances, since one would not be able to delight in it more than this without dying from it, savors that which is the anticipation of the most perfect eternal joy. And he savors them without dying from their sweetness, because a secret action of God helps him to receive them. He helps you by arousing holy desires in you that then lead you to perform holy works, provided that you are docile and attentive to his inspirations. When you let yourselves be inspired and moved by the eternal and perfect cause, whose every moment is performed out of love, you transform yourselves into creatures of love, and you elect love as your guide, and as your queen virtue. Then anything which you may say or do, even if it appears to someone that you do nothing, because your activity will not be eye-catching, loud, and agitated, but all intimate, daily prayers and offerings, an immolation requested and then accomplished, inside your eye, mindful of the words, "When you wish to pray, do not imitate the hypocrites who love to be seen by men, but rather enter into your homes and close yourselves in. Then truly you will transform yourselves from men into children of God, because you imitate the Father who works in the mystery of his heaven. Imitate the Son who did not like acclamations, and who, for as long as he could do so without opposing the plans of the Father, loved the concealment of Nazareth, escaping after every magnificent miracle which he had to accomplish in the presence of the crowds in order to confirm his true nature as Word of the Father and of the Messiah, by withdrawing to the mountains, or by distancing himself in a boat on the lake, or to the Mount of Olives, or to the district of Tyre and Sidon, or in the surrounding areas of Magdala, and even to the border of Samaria. Imitate the Holy Spirit, whose sanctifying action is carried out without uproar nor agitation inside the human spirit. You transform yourselves and accomplish works as children of God, increasing your identification with him, even through your ascent towards perfection. More still, your eye, both natural and spiritual, ever imperfect because of the consequence of original sin, annul themselves, it is true, and it is the true word, in order to take on the perfect eye of Jesus. Paul says, "I do not live, Christ lives in me." Every Christian who performs this earthly transformation, that is the means through which, after death, he will transform himself into an eternal heir of heaven, an heir in possession of his part of his inheritance, can then say with Paul, "Not I, but Christ lives in me." And truly, his actions will be actions carried out according to the Spirit of Christ. His prayers will be prayers that will continue the continuous prayer made by Christ while he was on earth. His sufferings will truly be a continuation and fulfillment of the sufferings of Christ, for the same purpose, the sanctification of men, and resulting in the same end, the glorious and external exaltation after the humiliation and martyrdom of the immolation. Finally, after having worked the union by means of communicating himself to you and the transformation of you in him with the docile adherence to his inspirations, which he would not arouse in you were he to see that you could not perform them in a manner which from a source of good would then transform themselves into an object of condemnation for you, the Spirit who is in you, in order to sustain your weakness and to work your sanctification, helps you with his perfect prayer. He, being God, knows in what way one needs to pray, and he prays with you and for you, and his prayer rises with yours and is telling through the union with the prayer of the Spirit to heaven, to the throne of he who scrutinizes hearts and who knows what the Spirit longs for and how it intercedes for the saints, according to the desires which God has for each of them. And this is the help of all help, your justification, your strength, your sanctification, which comes, exercises itself, which is begun on earth, and is crowned in heaven.